Today is kind of be a mixture of a day. We are going up to that old barn and we're going to measure some things because we got to figure out how to put footings underneath the beams. So we're going to take you on that journey. At least we'll kind of look through the process of what we're thinking and doing with that barn and how to fix it, because I think it will be a little bit more complex than we thought even it would be. All right. Come along for the ride. So right now you're just trying to establish a baseline of how tall this building should be, right?
Yeah, like, I mean, if you look at the ground in here, it's dirt floor and it's been manipulated many times. You could dig down to the base of the post, but it was dirt floor, so who knows where the baseline for the floor line was all the way throughout. So there's no real good gauge to say this needs to be from the floor up this high. The best gauge for us is going to be this running line of roof that's intact and not sagging. We need the other side to match that, so we're just going to get a reference from there down to level, and then we can measure down to level and know. Right now we're saying this is going to be 139. So everything's going to base on 139 then. So we'll double check the rest of these, but if these all come in, you know, within half an inch or something like that of that measurement all the way across here, then we know it's flat and level at that line. Let's say we measure this one that's clearly sagging. Maybe it only measures 130 and we know we're 9 inches of sag, 9 inches of loss we need to gain back. So then we can go from that spot and say, okay, we need to go whatever this distance is, plus 9 inches when we go in with the new pole. It's like I do when we do the post base footings in concrete. Yeah. It's the same idea, but upside down. So
that was 139.
Yeah, so that's kind of our baseline. It's arbitrary, but that's going to be our baseline. So I marked it on the post so that even if we get the laser not in the same spot, it's marked still at that same line on the post, so then I still can reference that level to know where we're at. Oh. Okay. This one's 1.5 inches shorter.
Oh no.
We'll find out. I was saying before that part of it kind of looked like, it's hard to tell, but it kind of looked like maybe the barn isn't exactly level. Like it had maybe a general slope. And maybe that's what we just saw with that. Maybe we got 1.5 inches of sag on those two things. Yeah, I think we got a slope. We were 139, 137 and a half, 136. That's 1.5 inches step, 1.5 inches step.
Okay, that's good to figure that out, that there's a slope versus...
Yeah, if there's a slope, then we'll match slope.
Okay.
So it gives us some general idea of things. So if that's all correct, then this one should be like
135 and a half.
134 and a half.
Oh, 134 and a half.
Yep.
Okay, well that's good. So you're seeing some consistency, which means that you don't have to replace these poles. I'll tell you what, that would be a huge job.
Well, that'd basically be rebuilding the barn. Yep. Right on.
So that's the good news.
Yep.
Can you imagine just coming in here and being like, okay, I'm going to just rip and tear and not know?
It probably wouldn't look any different. Other than the poles would be shinier.
It's good to have a plan. Yeah. Good to measure. So when you do come in, it's...
Well, so the idea and the reason I wanted to mark these posts, because now I can go hook the top and measure down. So, because that side should match this side. So I have them written on here, and I can look at this reference You'd be like 133, 133. And when I measure that, like I'm about to, you'll see. Like, let's do that one. 133 right there, right? So this one should be 133 to the laser. Whatever that difference is how far it's come down. 128.5. It's come down 5.5 inches of sag on this one. We're gonna say plus 5.5.
Yeah, your pencil is the same color as the post.
122 3/4.
Do you have that one marked yet? No, you don't have that one. But if this one's 139, then that one should be 140.5, right?
Is that 139?
Yeah, this one is 139. Where you started, right here in the middle.
Yeah, so 1.5 inches. So that was 139?
Yeah. This one should be 140.5.
Yeah.
So how far of a sag is that one?
18 inches.
Holy crap! That's nuts!
Right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, 122.5 to 140. Long ways.
I lost the little transporter to the microphones. And the
Transmitter.
transmitter. The last 2 hours, 2.5 hours, we're all dying of heat. I don't know if you can notice. We have been just searching for it in the bushes, and there's hardly any Wi-Fi out here, any kind of internet connections. So anyways, I ended up finding it because I'm the one that lost it. But we're done with that adventure, whatever. As soon as I found it, Everest goes, "Mom, don't you ever do that again." He was like just miserable. Let's talk about what Mark found. Okay, what did you find with the poles and everything? What do you think what was the biggest drop?
The biggest one that's missing looks like about 18 inches. That's in firm settled.
Mm-hmm.
Is 18 inches.
That's crazy.
So, but after looking at everything really solid and getting a pretty good baseline of all the referential numbers, it looks like we're 17 inches basically from concrete to 17 inches, 17 feet from concrete to bottom of the truss plate. We have 16 holes.
Oh.
But that's okay because we knew we were going to have to deal with the base down here being weird anyway, because we were literally post set and hole filled up too with concrete. So we know we're going to have some weirdness with how to get the posts back in place, because you got a rotten pole, you kick it out, or you put a new pole resting on top of a rotten pole, it's just going to compress, condense, and continue.
What's your solution for that?
So we're going to have to manufacture some kind of base, and you can't just do a regular bolt down base that you would buy and bolt down to concrete, because there's no smooth place for it. So I'm going to have to build some kind of a base out of steel that can go into place of that and take up an extra foot of height. We're going to do a little prefabbing before we come up here to go to work.
Okay.
It's complicated because the top of the concrete's not smooth, and here by the posts it's got it. So you can't just have a shoe. These walls, who knows if it doesn't look like they're supported on anything. If they are, I don't know where, but it looks like just a short bit of wall between the top of this is the footing. See how not flat it is, all that concrete?
Yeah.
So it's not like you have a surface to bolt down a plate. Even here, you don't have a surface. Like if you were to bridge across this or something, you still can't. And who knows if these are solid or what they're going down to. I don't know if there's a footing down in there and then the wall standing on top. it doesn't look like it because you see that concrete comes down over top.
Oh yeah, it almost like it was concrete at first, and then the concrete went around.
And then maybe they dug down a little. I don't know how far, but see, that's a lip of concrete there. So I think what they did is they just bolted boards to the sides and poured a chunk of concrete in the middle to kind of hold something. But there's no base and no footing and nothing to sustain it. In fact, you can still see a lip of concrete out here. So maybe they had a little bit of a belly between the poles and they just poured concrete to it. So there's nothing to set your post back onto. So
because it's just dirt.
Because it's just degraded post.
Yeah.
And that used to be the post.
Yeah.
So there's a hole there. You don't want to put it back in the hole and rot. So we got to get something kind of worked out here, what that's going to be to do the job right, to get that. So I got to do a little bit of thinking and figuring. At this point, I'm looking for solutions. Lots of them floating in my head, so it's just a matter of like ironing out what's the good plan and not a good plan. Well, I'm going to do some cutting and some welding for a minute in preparations to getting back over to that hay barn and getting that posts replaced in that barn. I've had a good long think on it, and I'll show you kind of what my anticipation is of what I'm going to do to try to fix that up. There's a couple of unique problems there that I've got to manage through, and so kind of draw a quick sketch here on my whiteboard. We have these post footings in the ground, and it's something like that with this post embedded in there. So they poured the concrete out, post comes up, they're rotting right here. This is typically what happens, especially if you embed posts in concrete. Here where they meet the concrete, the post will just dissolve. It'll just disintegrate or break apart and come and rot. With its downward force, it's just driving down. So some of those posts have gone down up to 18 inches of fall that they've sunken. Probably started down here, rotting up the sides, and then the whole post just slides down in. Something like that. One of the problems we have is they've taken these posts up like that, and then they formed like so. If you look at between posts, they've taken and put some boards on and poured concrete like this. Now there's no footing, there's no consistency. The concrete wall stub just sits through here in the ground, and then the ground level is right here. So from the surface, it looks like an okay little wall here with a post in between. So it poses problems because this surface isn't very smooth, so there's no way to bridge that. There's no footing under here, there's no way to attach to that. And so what we have to do is try to use this concrete post base, so to speak, to be the base in there. There's a few of them that are already missing entirely. The post is just gone. And you've got this kind of pit of rotten post through the concrete with a concrete wall stub up like that. And that's it. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to bridge across the hole with a post base that we can come up to a nice bracket to attach the new poles in. Basically, let me draw one just a little bigger. So if we have the wall stubs like this, and they're inconsistent and they're not, like I said, there's no footing on them. And then and they're resting on top of this kind of domed or crowned top of a post base with this like square hole going down through it. There's a lot of ways we could do this. You know, I could go in there and I could auger out all the junk wood, and we could drive a pipe down into the center of the concrete, clean out all the hollow cavity of the concrete and pour new concrete with a steel pipe, something like that, and then put a plate and a base. We could do something along those lines. Problem is we don't have any water, we don't have any power up there. Doing concrete work, it's going to be complicated to try to make that work. And we'd have to go on a case-by-case basis. We'd have to do one post at a time and try to set it and get it in there and then wait for that to cure, replace a post, come back and take out the next one because we're doing this with live load. We're trying to do it right, but not break the bank for them either. What we've decided with these holes in there, like this, basically, the square hole in there, we've got some really heavy duty angle iron, and we're gonna build a base that'll come across here, all the way across on top of this concrete and bolt down here through into the concrete. It'll bridge that. It's well over 1/2 inch. It's super thick and heavy duty, and it has like that. So it's big angle iron piece, something like that, right? Then on there, we're gonna have some drill pipe welded that comes up at 12 inches up, and this will all get welded here and up the side where it comes up the webbing of the angle iron. And then at the top of that, we'll have a post base with tabs welded out of angle iron that goes on top of that drill pipe. So that'll get us up where we can still bolt down to this good concrete post base that's poured in and it's stable. We can use concrete anchor bolts to bolt down there and get that secure and stable. And then this will come up and create the platform for our wood posts to go in and put our anchor screws through into the wood post. This roof doesn't have a ton of weight on it. It's just the weight of the roof, and the only time it loads up with roof load is in the winter for a day or so until the snow sheds. I don't need to worry too much about the compression force, the force down, especially if I'm using that good post base of concrete that's still in there and still good. I just need to be able to get that post stabilized, bolted down really secure to the concrete, and get it up high enough that it's out of the muck. And so we're using just super heavy duty stuff. This is the stuff that I'm using for the base that will come into contact with the wood. And that's like 3/16 inch angle iron, really thick, way thicker than any post base you would use for concrete, like the Simpson ties and stuff like that they make. This is the angle iron I'm using for the base to the concrete. You can see it's like 1/2 inch thick, and I think it's 4 inch by 6 inch. So I'll drill holes through that we can bolt down to the concrete with. So that's really thick and heavy, and that's going to carry the weight across that 6 inch hole in the concrete surface. That weight is not going to be a problem for that. And then I've got some, wherever it is, right out there, got some big drill pipe. We're going to cut those into 1 foot sections. We'll stand them on top of the heavy duty angle iron, and then we'll build square tops for the connection to the wood that will weld on top of the drill pipes. I'm going to go through and do a bunch of cutting because this is a lot of pieces that need to be cut down into small pieces to then be welded together. And we got 17 posts to replace. So any of them that have reduced height, we're going to cut them off, replace them, start over with them. So I got to cut those into 35 pieces. I got to cut those drill pipes into 17 pieces, and I got to cut some of that big heavy angle iron into 17 pieces. So I've got my chop saw out here set up, and I'm going to make all the cuts out here where the mess can be easier to clean up out here. Get things cut, and then we can maybe get on to building them. That makes a lot quicker work out of it, making all these cuts, than it does trying to do it with the hand grinder or with the torch. I got like 2 more of them discs and I'll use them up, but I'm gonna buy a actual metal cutting blade for that. I've had them in shops in the past and they're just phenomenal. They last a long time and they'll cut through a lot of stuff. They don't create the heat like that. So, but I didn't want to spend a ton of time after cutting them with the torch to go back through and grind everything off and smooth it out to try to be able to work with it. So this is going to work out pretty good. It is a lot of cut for that big, thick, heavy duty angle iron. I burned through quite a bit of blade cutting through that stuff, but it does a better job with the drill pipe since that's a high carbon steel. It cuts through that better than the blades will. It's getting late in the afternoon. I need to go take care of the animals, so I'll probably kick this off tomorrow and pick up where I left off. Okay, I got the chop saw out this morning and I was able to get through most of these other cuts on the original blade. Finished off all the drill pipe cuts, and then I decided I was going to start cutting on these big fat thick angle irons. And what I found was it just takes so much blade to cut through that. What I really need is like a bandsaw, and the only blade I have for my portable bandsaw, the handheld bandsaw, is pretty dull. I didn't want to torch it because I was like, man, I'm going to have to spend all this time grinding those edges to clean them up and smooth them out. But compared to the amount of time I'm going to spend trying to get that blade to go through it, I decided it was still a better option, better time to just go ahead and torch through these. Only problem is I torched through all of the material that I have there. I had 3 lengths of it and I cut it all apart, and I've only got 12 pieces and I need 17. So I'm going to have to go looking for another big fat chunk of that to be able to get the bases finished up. But now I can clean all these up. These are all clean cut, thank goodness. These need to get a hole through this lower flange down here and here on each end to bolt to the concrete. Then this can get welded into there. These all need holes drilled in the side flange to be able to bolt into the wood post. So I'll drill those before I put them on to the top of the drill pipe. That way it's just a lot easier to drill, and I can put them in the drill press and just run through them and get them all drilled out pretty quick, and then start welding everything up. Okay, all my pilot holes are drilled. I just drilled in with 1/4 inch. Now I'm going to step up to, I don't know, nearly 1/2 inch. And my finished cut is going to be a 5/8. Using them concrete bolts, the ones that self-tap and drill and bite into the concrete once you drill the hole. That's what I'm going to use to anchor these down with, and they're 1/2 inch. So I need about a 5/8 inch hole in the steel to have room to drop the bolt through cleanly. So that's what we're doing. Just rinse and repeat through all these until we get holes big enough. Okay, last one, 5/8. That'll get us up to our hole that we need for the bolts. Okay, that's got those all drilled. So that's the 5 inch by 1/2 inch bolt that's going to bolt into the concrete base and anchor this in place. That fits just right. Now I got to wire wheel these to kind of take some of this rust flake buildup off of there, and then put the drill pipe in place, and we'll weld those up on all of them. We'll weld the tops. I've got all these big heavy angle irons, finished drilling, ground the edges to get rid of the slag, got them cleaned up, and then I did grind a little bit here where the pipe's going to lay, just to kind of clean up the surface. And that's how that's going to sit in here. And I'll weld all the way around here, and then I'm not going to weld the full length here. I think it's probably stronger without it. So I'm just going to go about 2, maybe 2.5 inches along each side here, just to keep that webbing tight to here and help support it. What I happen to do first though is I'm cutting just this little 45-degree bevel off right here for the radius, to account for this radius in the angle iron. Just gives it just enough clearance to sit flush and flat on the base of the end. So all I'm doing with that is just set my chop saw up at a 45-degree angle, and I'm just setting it up to just nick off that little bit of wedge to make sure that I got enough there. So then I'll weld all these pipes to those bases. Then I'll get started doing these angle irons. I need to drill them first before I weld them on top of the pipes. I am still short 5 pieces of this, and I need to make a trip into the salvage yard tomorrow to try to get another chunk of that, another 5 feet of it, so that I can get 5 more made, and then we'll be there. That drill pipe's pretty rusty, so I laid down a bead of 6011 first on everything, kind of cut through the rust and build up a little bit of a base, and now I'm going back over it with 7T18 just to get a good weld everywhere I need it. Okay. That's the last of those for now. Still need to get those other 5 pieces. It's getting late enough now. I need to go do farm chores. So we're gonna call it a night, pack up the tools, and start again tomorrow. I've gotten all of the bases welded to the pipes, and then I've taken my stack of angle irons and drilled my holes in there. That'll be for the lag bolt to attach to the post. Got all these drilled out. I've got them kind of sorted. I cut them pretty close to the same size, but there's a little bit of variance in a couple of pieces, so I just sorted them in pairs, basically, so that they match up. Because we're dealing with a rough sawn 6x6s, I've got a piece here of rough sawn 2x6. So I'm saddling these pieces over it to make sure that my spacing is going to match the same boards that are there, those 6x6s. Because that's one problem with the rough sawn, is like you use a store-bought 6x6 post base and it's 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches inside, whereas these rough saws are full 6 inches. So it's just going to be simpler for me to quicker, basically using it like a jig, to straddle these on here, get it all pulled in snug and balanced and centered and everything. And then I'll weld all this up fully here so that we end up with a base like this. That's kind of basically the finished product there. We have about a 6 to 7 inch hole in the concrete footing that this will bridge. And then I've got my holes here to put 1/2 inch concrete bolts down into that footing base. And then this rises out just over a foot to get me past the edges of those little concrete wings that are in between the posts right now, and up to a good clear positioning so that I can put the post on here and bolt in from both sides to secure that. That's kind of the thought there. This will easily slip into that, in between that concrete wall, because they vary in size and they're not square and they're not true. So that way I can get this to drop in. It's 4 inches wide through here. So that'll drop down in and bridge that without being in the way. Can bolt down to the concrete, can bolt to the post, and then go up to the roof. So now I just got 16 more of those to weld up, and then we finally have those ready to get over there and get the posts put into place. All finished. those 17 are going to go replace 17 posts and get put in. I think we're going to get a start on it tomorrow, probably.